This guy goes back to high school to correct his mistakes. Boy, I wish I could do that. So first he takes a short tour of Hayden High School. Then we see a little boy making tires. He just hits consecutive baskets, not a stone or an air ball. What a guy. His name is Michael Donald and the year is 1989. Mike's coach, Coach Murphy, walks in and tells him he's just spoken to a scout who will give him a full college scholarship if he can only play at half his skill. Tonight. Oh, you know this won't end well. The rest of the team come over to take pictures. Mike says he couldn't have taken the picture without his best friend Ned, and one of them says, who cares? He's a water boy. But Mike said it doesn't matter, he's part of the team. As he says so, Ned walks in. He's a geek, so I have to say his parents gave him a fitting name. Anyway, Ned joins in and takes pictures. Now it's game time. The cheerleaders go about their business while Ned and Mike talk. Mike dances with the girls and he's a lot of fun. I feel like he can do anything. When he finished dancing, his girlfriend Scarlett joined in. She says all is well, but her face says something else entirely. She doesn't want to tell him, but Mike insists. So she told him she was pregnant, which made him very upset. I can sympathize. He went to the game and had the worst game of his life. All his teammates yell at him, his coach yells at him, and the scouts give him weird looks. So what does Mike do? He drops the ball and chases his girlfriend. Sir, what are you doing? This game is your future. And that's exactly what his girlfriend told him. But he says, no, babies are his future and we're not talking about Rapper the baby. Either way, they could both be his future at the same time. It's not like Scarlett is in labor. He's picking up his girlfriend outside and turning her around while the game is on. Well, I think everyone is stupid in high school, including the star players. This stupidity got Mike to where he is now. After being kicked out of the house by Scarlett, he had to crouch with Ned and hear him chew loudly. She has also filed for divorce. By the way, what are those ears on Ned? Anyway, it looks like Mike is going to get a big promotion at work today. As he walked into his office, his boss made a presentation and said, depending on the circumstances, being locked up for 4 hours might not be so bad after all. There are no circumstances in which it would not. Terrible. And companies can't screw this up. Well, after the presentation he said, I'm going to appoint a new regional sales manager. I think Mike is right. He smiles and winks. But of course not. Sitting next to him is Wendy. In fact, he asks Mike to move so he can congratulate Wendy. Double danger, brother. The ladies are happy with Wendy. I say women because the only two men present at the meeting are Mike and her 4-hour man. The women leave and Mike confronts the boss. Wendy has only been with us for 2 months, but Mike has been with us for 16 years. How did she get promoted? Sex is for a moment. A man makes a terrible remark, but Mike is fed up with it so far. He grabbed his boss's earphones and slammed them against the wall, surrendering. To make matters worse, as Mike is in the elevator, the girls walk in and start yelling Wendy, Wendy. By the way, aren't there too many people in the elevator? Anyway, Mike drove straight to high school and stepped onto the basketball court. Of course he regrets his decision that day. How could he not? As he walks through school, he remembers what it was like for him at the time. When he is looking at photos from that time, a janitor dressed as Santa Claus approaches him and calls his name. Mike doesn't know him, but clearly he knows him. He said now high school stars like Mike who aren't living up to their potential always go back to school and imagine their glory days and wonder what it would have been like back then. I peaked in high school, too, he says. You always live in the past. Mike says of course he doesn't want to live in the past. Then Santa says, I wish we could do it all over again. Mike says, that's right. Santa says, really? And Mike says, oh, yeah. At that moment, the doorbell rings and my daughter comes out with 3 friends. She asks him what he's doing there and tries to say he only talks to the janitor, but she finds the janitor is nowhere to be found. He is gone. He told her daughter to call her brother and go get some ice cream. Meanwhile, her friends compliment him. Mike, his daughter Maggie and son Alex are now at this ice cream parlor. And why are there so many children? He tries to strike up a conversation with the children, but it doesn't work. His son is also a basketball player and Mike is trying to see if he's on the right track to earn a scholarship. He took the children home and saw his wife destroying her garden. When he confronted her, she told him that this was her garden, not hers. And that conversation tells us that Mike has spent the last 18 years escaping his life and doing what he couldn't do without her. Oh, I see why she wants a divorce. While they are still in the garden, Scarlett's best friend Naomi appears. And what should she say? They must put Scarlett back on the market. She even said it was over. Anyway, the ladies go indoors as soon as the weather improves. Dramatic raindrops rain down on Mike. Strange things happen as he drives home. The radio switched on automatically and I saw a man standing on the railing of the bridge about to jump off. Mike is a good guy, so he gets out of the car and tries to silence the guy. And it turns out that it is the janitor Santa Claus. He turned and smiled at Mike, but as the truck passed by, we never saw him again. Mike looks under the bridge and sees what looks like a hole. In that hole, he can see his younger self waving at him. And then he gets dragged into a hole. Next we see Mike, a really muddy 17-year-old, getting out of the car and going into the house to take a shower. He cries out when he sees himself in his mirror. Hearing this, Ned tracks down the intruders in his best performance as a gladiator. Mike tries to explain that he is him, but Ned keeps swinging his axe at Mike. Mike removes the shield from the wall to protect him and throws Ned down the stairs. He jumps down to Athletic and says, "Wow, I feel great," but Ned is still unconvinced. He continues to attack Mike with his sword. Why does this guy have so many gladiator weapons? But it's no joke either. He nearly stabs Mike in the chest, but Mike turns him around in the nick of time, giving Ned only his chair. Still he doesn't stop. He still beats Mike and doesn't listen to his friend saying "I'm Mike." The fight soon changed from using gladiatorial weapons to using lightsabers, and Mike now tells Ned that only his best friend can know, such as the fact that one of his boss's testicles hasn't fallen off. "I'm trying not yet." Well, I certainly didn't need to know that. But well, it still doesn't convince him. He put the mic on the ground and grabbed something and tried to smash his head. It happened to be a picture I took with Mike in high school. That's what finally convinced him, but he still drops the picture on Mike's head and he faints. When Mike woke up some time later, Ned didn't stop staring at him with a hard head. He was astonished. I mean, who wouldn't? His theory has to do with gamma rays, but he's trying to figure out how this change happened. That is why all these books are scattered on his table. But the most likely explanation is the shape-shifting magic of spirit guides. In essence, Mike was changed by a spirit guide who set him on a new path. His spirit guide is the caretaker. So he rushed to the school and asked for a janitor, but no one at the school knew him or saw him. In fact, he looks like a madman asking about the janitor. Then the lights flashed and he saw water on the ground and followed it to the basketball court. That's enough for him. He rushes back to Ned and says he understands everything. He goes back to high school. They argue over this, but Mike insists. Ned reluctantly agrees, but tells Mike not to get involved in things like this, as high school is the lowest point in his life. What do you think will happen to him? Of course he was drawn in. What are best friends for? They're in the principal's office now, and Ned's Mike's dad is playing and trying to enroll Mike. Ned sees Jane Masterson, the principal, and she absolutely falls in love at first sight. He tries to cut off his shot by calling Mike, now called Mark by the way, an asshole. He tells Jane that he is single and rich. Individual parts are not supported. But let's take a quick look at what Mike is wearing. What is this all about? Anyway, thanks to Ned, Mike turned in the fake report card to the principal and it worked. She said she thinks Hayden was lucky to have him, and she admitted he was. Instead of saying goodbye to Ned, he decides to keep shooting. At this point, Jane makes it clear that she is not dating the student's parents. They go to school and Mike tries to flirt with Maggie's friends, like Susie. I remember fighting over him last time, but they just blew up. Keep him away. Well, it's not crazy. Then Ned says, welcome to the bottom of the food chain. Of course he knows what it feels like to be there. Everyone thinks so, right? Now he's telling Mike he's going shopping, so at least he doesn't look stupid. The next day, Mike, or should I say Mark, pulled up to school in a really cute car, looked like a really cool boy, and now everyone's eyes are on him. However, when he entered the corridor, a bell rang and he seems to have lost his way. Students poured in from all sides, literally pushing him away from all sides. Eventually he manages to attend class, but he still seems lost when his wife calls. He was supposed to attend the divorce proceedings, but forgot. When a girl in his class asks Mike if he wouldn't consider dating a 10th grader, he starts making excuses. Of course, we know how that sounds to Scarlett, so her attorney immediately stepped in and said she could apply for custody. Mike says he can't take the kids away from him, and when Maggie walks into the classroom Mike asks how long he's been interested. Mike replies, I'm much closer to them than you think, and of course he meant it literally. It's pretty creepy, though. He waved at Megan, who didn't feel much for her young father, but her friend did. I know nothing about this movie. Now he's on the basketball court and having the best time of his life. A trainer comes and who do you think the trainer is? Yes, Coach Murphy. Mike looks at him and says, are you still here? I asked him why he was confused. Now, Coach Murphy says it's his last year as a coach and invites Mike to a tryout. Now Mike is calling Ned in the restroom for an update. Ned says he wants Mike to get into trouble because the principal wants to see his father. Ned may not be back on the basketball court, but he's serious about scoring. As Mike tries to find a leak, he hears someone calling for help. When he saw it was his son Alex taped to the urinal. He says the basketball team did this to him and Mike is confused because he thought Alex was popular. He introduces Alex as his uncle Ned's son and tears off his ribbon. Now that they are together in the cafeteria, Mike notices that his son is looking at a girl named Nicole. He clearly likes her, but he says she's the cheerleader manager and she's never going to date. Mike approaches his girlfriend to greet her and encourage him to remember to be her own person. Anyway, Mike tries to encourage Alex and he forgets the plot of the movie and starts talking to him like he's his own father, like when I first met your mom. Alex says, huh, but Mike manages to cover it up by saying it's a joke. As they are still eating, Stan, the school's main bully, comes in with his sons. Alex says he hates him. Stan tied him to the urinal and even put him in his washing machine yesterday. Brothers-in-law do the craziest things. How did the school bully break into his house? Apparently Stan is Maggie's boyfriend. Oh, he walks over to Maggie and even kisses him on the spot, and you can see his father's disappointment in Mike's eyes. Well, it's the same when you take your kids to school. Mike maintains eye contact with Stan and comes over to the table where Mike and Alex are sitting. He bounced the ball off Alex's head, but his father wasn't going to just sit there and let it go. He confronts Stan and starts beating him in front of almost the entire school. Basically, he's saying he's one of 3 reasons why Stan is a bully. First, he is an insecure girl inside. Second, his brain is underdeveloped like a caveman. Third, he has a small wiener. The latter is the case with Mike. Which of the three reasons do you think excited the audience the most? Last, of course. He ends his short speech by telling Stan, "Don't hurt yourself, brother," but that's enough. He didn't even have to lift a finger except to spin the ball. Mike is back home but Ned won't let him drink because he's technically not 21 yet. As he eats, he tells them he's a bad father because his son played as a punching bag in high school last year and he just found out his daughter is dating Donkey. Now let's pause here, because what the heck is Mike getting? What the hell is this conversation all about? While eating this health hazard, the depressed man realized that his spiritual path wasn't about basketball, he said. It's about helping children. He puts down his food and goes straight to Alex's house, his house to be exact. Alex is hopeful and actually good, so Mike says he'll put him on the school's team. While talking, Naomi and Scarlett stop. I waited for her to act like she didn't recognize her face, but luckily she let me down. She now stretches her back and pulls his face, saying she looks just like her ex-husband. Naomi, on the other hand, thinks that Scarlett is just still obsessed with Mike. So while Scarlett says this guy Mark is exactly what her husband looked like in high school, Naomi insists she just needs to get into a relationship with someone new, and I really wonder why she is having this conversation before leading her son to his friend. Mike finds out how strange this is and confronts Naomi about it. Someone had to do it. The next day he went to health class and saw his daughter playing with Stan in front of the glass. He broke it off and the teacher said formal school policy against such things was abstinence. Safety. Anyway, Mike repeats the abstinence part and says everyone should have an abstinence pact. But of course no one agrees. He even looks like he's missing some cool points in the process. Teachers also admit that it is a rather unrealistic question. She then handed out some balloons to the class and in front of him her daughter's boyfriend held the balloons. No, it must be every father's nightmare. Anyway, Mike keeps his cool and talks about what true love means and being only with the people you truly love. To be honest, his little speech resonated with Maggie and just about every girl in her class. Everyone returns balloons, but trusts Stan to take some more. He says more for me. This will feed me enough for the weekend, said Maggie. Mike lost his cool this time. He lunged at Stan, who stood up and retaliated with a few punches to her face. And everyone can be trusted. They took out their cell phones, recorded a video, and circulated it. Within minutes, the video went viral throughout the school. It became a hot topic on YouTube. But who do you think it's for? Yes, Ned, because after the altercation, the principal demanded to see the boy's parents, so Ned went straight downstairs in his Sunday dress. Because it flew away. By the way, the main attraction of Sunday is that it looks stupid, but this is a technique called peacocking, which means that it breaks the ice at the same time as it attracts attention. I personally call this costume __ blocking. He breaks into the director's office and makes a fool of himself. But before he sat down, she had already seen him completely through. She says, "Do you play peacocks? Really? Do you think this will work? But what world is this movie set in?" He thinks. You can see the similarities. He helped her carry things from the car to the backyard, where she still works. When she told him about her idea of renovating her garden, he blurted out, "That would be great, Scar." Oh, he failed again. It seems that Mike is the only one who calls Scarlett Scar, and he seems to be a bit mean. However, he manages to get out of there. She thinks he's just trying to hunt a cougar, but he says otherwise. Scene next is a montage of Mike having fun with his unsuspecting family. He helps out with Scarlett's garden, helps Alex with basketball, and helps Maggie escape from Stan Boy. And somewhere in between we see Ned making some big gestures to get the principal's attention. She's not interested. Alex got on the basketball team, so of course his mom is very proud of him. She then takes the boys outside to show them the garden. She just finished it and she actually looks beautiful. Mike is overwhelmed. He tells her that if people knew how great she was, she could design her gardens all over the city. But just as he was enjoying all that beauty, she told him she had a date tonight and she had to go. Listening to the hearing, I could tell he was devastated, but he was trying to keep his cool. She says she's going to dance, which is silly because she's a terrible dancer. And when he fails again and says, "You're a great dancer," she says, "What?" As she walked into the room and put on her clothes and danced in front of her mirror, she asked Mike to come in and teach her to dance. He goes to the stereo, picks up the CD, puts the CD in. The song he chose happened to be the song they danced to at their wedding. What were the odds? It's a really romantic song, and as you can imagine, it includes some pretty romantic dances that they're performing right now. As they dance, Scarlett always keeps Mike's hand above his waist. This movie is weird. Meanwhile, he asks Scarlett if she can be with her husband again, but she replies no. She loves and cares about her husband, but sometimes that's not enough. He must be rich too. Anyway, now Mike picks her up and turns her around, and their faces come dangerously close together. Alex shows up just in time to finish this. He turned off the music and told his mother that his date was here. Scarlett goes to the door and Mike is right behind it trying to break it down. But his attempts were in vain. Scarlett gives Mike the divorce papers to give to Ned, who reminds him to be there on the 27th. She then grabs her coat and leaves. Just as her wife was about to leave, her daughter ran into the car and said she was going to Jamie's party. So Mike drags Alex right there. They are at a party and Mike is trying to get Alex to talk to Nicole. Alex asks Mike, what does she know about girls? And tells how she dated the prettiest girl in school. The letter slipped through his fingers. He tells him about her mother, which of course he doesn't know. He finally forces Alex to talk to Nicole and goes looking for Maggie. He asks Maggie's friends where she is, but they are only interested in opening his wrappings like Christmas presents. He is almost fooled by it, but he ignores it because deep down he remembers that he is about 40 years old. Come on man, he sits them down and lectures them a little bit about respect, but they say they don't want him to pay respect. Wow, he gives up and leaves. By the way, Alex and Nicole are really great. It's not a funny way of telling her she resembles his dog who died. This guy doesn't have a game, or Liz, as kids these days call it. But before we know it, it's on fire. And I'm not on fire because he's right now, I'm on fire literally. So he runs to the bathroom. Meanwhile, Mike finds Maggie, but doesn't seem too happy to see him there. But Mike doesn't care. He speaks directly to the elephant in the room. He asks her why she is dating Stan when he is crazy. And while she told him not to say that about him, she told him worse things, including Stan and her living together after her graduation. And Mike says that can't happen. He tells her he's not going to make her give up her future for a psychopath who doesn't care about her water. And he kept telling her that he would never see her again. Then she had to react. She says, "Who do you think you are?" Anyway, she's gone. Then we see Scarlett and this newcomer on the high school basketball court. "You came to see Alex." And she remembered that the last time she was here, Mike asked her to marry him. Anyway, Mike is on the pitch. She has less than a minute left to play. He looked around and saw Stan kissing his daughter and another man sitting very close to his wife. Of course it affects him, but it works like fuel. He scored important goals and assists this time. Alex got 3 victory points. Alex became the main character. Nicole runs up to him, hugs him, and congratulates him, but he is still very awkward. Now we see the principal being invited by Ned after school. She said no, so he said he would buy each student a laptop. How rich is Ned really? She agrees to go out with him, though she insists she's not dating anyway. She just wants him to stop harassing her. He had a limousine ready, but she said she didn't want one, so I just got in the car. Mike is seen getting into the principal's car after promising Alex to give Nicole another chance. And tell him to hold a victory party at his house. His house is of course Ned's. He goes to the amphitheater and sees Maggie crying alone there. Stan kicked her out because she didn't want to play with the balloons she got in class. He gave her words of encouragement and she tried to kiss him, so he had no choice but to look away from her. But God knows he's gone crazy. He invites Maggie to tonight's party and everyone else is invited too. Now we're at a party and everyone's there. Alex would prefer Nicole. Meanwhile, Ned and the principal go out on a date. Ned is a big fan of wine, smelling it and making strange noises when he puts it in his mouth. She gives him a glance, but he only admits that he doesn't know how to behave normally. And he does it just to impress her. Usually he doesn't do that. He confessed to Gandalf the Grey's quarterstaff in the Two Towers that he wanted to spend 10 grand. And who would have thought? She's a fan too. They follow it and that's it. He is with us. Back at the party, Stan still pesters Maggie about her cute activities, but Maggie manages to resist the pressure and tells him that she's now dating someone else. Then Mike appears and tells him to leave the party. Before walking away, Mike punches Mike, but Stan grabs Mike's hand and punches him in the face. He faints. He wakes up and says he had the craziest dream. He was back in high school and all that. He calls out Scarlett's name, but to his absolute horror, it's his daughter there. And it's kind of a nightmare, but we're going to skip it. He runs around trying to get away from her, but she thinks he's just playing a game and just chases him. He's trying to get her to have nothing to do with himself, so she just thinks he's out of this world. It must have been very scary for Mike. Meanwhile, Ned's date is going well. They also communicate in Gandalf's language. Ready to go home. By the way, the house is still full of high school students she teaches. And we see Scarlett come looking for Alex. Mike stopped her and told her that Alex was fine and that she might have a girlfriend by the end of the night. He then takes her upstairs. Jane and Ned stop by the house and experience complete chaos. However, Jane dismisses everyone with a single whistle. She can really do the job. Anyway, Mike watches Alex having fun upstairs with Scarlett. Scarlett tells Mike, or should I say Mark in this case, that she is very happy that he cares so much for Alex, because boys need role models. Mike tells her she's a great mother to her. When he finds Scarlett on the balcony while Maggie and her friends are still watching, he pounces on Scarlett and is slapped across the face. When he pursued her, she hurriedly walked away from him, telling her that he was in fact her husband and the father of her children. She doesn't want to hear it. Then Maggie and his friends show up and beat him in turn. Now it's time to party. But it's not only a sad night for Mike, it's also a sad night for Ned. Jane said she couldn't because she witnessed the students already being with the parents of some students. Mike arrives and apologizes, but receives 4 slaps and a hug from Ned. The next morning, while Ned cleans up, Mike mourns the loss of his family. Ned tells him to move on, but he says he doesn't want to. By the way, it was the same day the divorce hearing was scheduled, and the couple drove to court in a cute yellow Lamborghini convertible. Mike raises the siren and manages to arrive in time to stop the judge's decision. Ned gives the judge a fake law degree and gets the judge to talk. But she tells her orderlies to kick her out because she knows this is nonsense from her one sentence alone. But Mike says he has a letter for Mike and Scarlett wants to hear it, so I ask him to forgive me. In the letter, Mike basically reminds Scarlett of the time they met at prom and the first time he told them he loved them. Now he's grown up and lost and blamed everything on her. Mike is crying now, Scarlett is crying too, but the judge isn't crying. She tells Mike to go. He drops a newspaper in it and walks out with Ned. Scarlett requested a stay, and the judge stayed the case for 30 days. She then goes to pick up a piece of paper that Mike dropped, only to find irrelevant instructions written on it that tell her everything she needs to know. Later that night, Mike is playing at Ned's house. He practices to impress college scouts. Ned says he will be off the spiritual path if he goes to college, and Mike exclaims, "There is no path." He says everyone would be happier without him, so he just tries to move on. Around the same time, Scarlett is looking through her high school yearbook to remember what Mike was like back then. When she goes outside, she finds a hammock with a note and a ring on it. The note was from Mike and said, "I wish I could finish everything I started." Said. Next we see Mike playing basketball on his court, training for the game. The coach walks in and gives the exact same speech as in 1989. Then they take pictures and the cheerleaders do their own thing, just like in 1989. Scarlett and Maggie come to watch the match and Mike and Scarlett look into each other's eyes. On the other hand, Ned hasn't given up on Jane. He shows up in that weird trainer costume and tries to persuade her again, but insists she can't meet her students' parents with her. He replied, "But Jane, when I'm wearing an invisibility cloak, how can you see me with you?" Believe it or not, she thought it was funny. Thought. Ned says he just wants to be friends, but we all know that's a lie. Anyway, she agrees, or in her words, "You can raid my dungeon anytime." Meanwhile, on the court, Mike gestured to Scarlett and she just said, "Oh my god, I can't stay here anymore. I have to go." From there, the 1989 game and the present day all intertwine in his head. What does he do? He gave Assad the ball, told him it was his turn, and chased his wife. His spirit guides are very happy with the decision he has now made. He reverts to his adult self as he runs towards his wife. She told him she didn't have to chase anymore, but she says he had to because he loves her. He told her it was the best decision he ever made. He just forgot. He says he will make amends to her if she only gives him another chance. And quite right, she does. They reconcile and depart while Alex rampages in the square. Mike is at Ned's house. He packs up and is ready to leave, so he leaves to return the key to Ned. And Viola? Ned and the principal are playing. Oh, fear not. I relinquish judgment as Mike Murphy appears to be a successful high school basketball coach. Wonderful. The moral of the story, just walk up to her and say hello.